What's up, everybody? It's your boy. Participation illusion is one of the most dangerous phenomena in recent history because not only are we consuming deliberately incendiary news content designed solely to make us angry and terrified, but we're over-consuming it, which causes us to do less and to feel anxious and depressed because we don't go outside. But also, we never do anything about these issues we're so afraid of because we're spending so much time consuming this content. And then bitching about it online makes us feel like we're doing something to affect change. So we never actually do anything except guilt each other into participating in the cycle, because if you don't keep up with the news, you can't really comment on what you think is right or wrong. You're not informed. And we never make a difference because we spend our time trying to figure out which one of us is the most holy instead of aka Reed from Shameless Nerd. Today's video is about time. If you would like to support a public school teacher doing the only thing that grants him reprieve from yelling at disinterested children about the true meaning of the road not taken by Robert Frost, the number one thing you can do to support is to hit the subscribe button and then to hit the bell, because this website is evil, as most are, and subscribing to a channel essentially means nothing unless you take an extra step of hitting the bell, which says, hey, I want to be notified about uploads from the channel to which I just subscribed, which, yes, of course, is the entire purpose of subscribing to a channel, so please do that. And if you are so inspired to support me even further, the even more best thing you can do to support the channel is to click the join button and become a member. It's $2 or $5 a month, and it grants you access to a bunch of cool stuff, and it might just buy me a Starbucks sugar-free Frappuccino. All right, let's get into it. Do you feel old? Do you feel like all of a sudden, oh my God, I'm 28, I'm going to die any day now, oh God, how did this happen, when did I get old, why do I have wrinkles under my eyes, oh God? Well, I sure do. I used to be incredibly pretty, guys. I actually wrote this whole script, so I wouldn't be saying any of this if this hypothetical question didn't apply to me, because why would I make a video about it? I feel like time is moving faster. I feel like as I get older, the years go by more quickly, and I've heard this explained as being due in large part to an inevitable aspect of our relationship to time and age and frame of reference. Like when you're young, when you're 8 years old, and you know that in 4 years you'll get to go to 6th grade, and you'll get to go to middle school, and you'll get to change classes and not be stuck in the same classroom all day at school, and you're so excited for that. 4 years feels like a lifetime because it is a lifetime. That's 50% of the entire time you've existed, and you don't even remember the first 3 years of your 8-year existence, so it really is like basically living your entire life over again, that 4 years. When you're 60, you've lived 4 years 15 times, and 4 years feels like nothing because you remember feeling old 4 years ago when you were 56, and you are the exact same person at your core, the same excited child waiting for 6th grade that you were when you were 8. 52 years ago. And that makes time feel like it's moving much faster because the years add up and feel less significant. There's not much of a difference between your 34th year and your 35th year, but there is a massive difference between being 12 and being 13, being a teenager. When I was 12, I would come home from playing in the neighborhood muddy and with scabbed knees. When I was 13, I would come home with hickeys on my neck. You feel me? And this explanation does make a lot of sense, I think, and I think that some of that hastening of time as you age really is inevitable, and I think we just have to try to embrace getting older, because there's nothing we can really do about that unless you're that weird sad tech bro injecting your son's blood into your veins every day in a cryogenic chamber or whatever. And to a certain extent, lamenting and whining about something happening that you don't like happening kind of makes it happen more. So I think that there is certainly credibility to that idea in multiple facets. But I have a theory of my own about what is causing this ever-quickening pace to the passing of time, and my theory contains actionable steps you can actually take to try to combat it. And maybe that's at least a part of the motivation in my developing this theory, but still, it's what I think, okay? Let me live. Have you ever heard the phrase, time flies when you're having fun? Of course you have. You haven't? But what do you mean you haven't? Do you know any? Oh, you watch WWE. Okay, I got you. No, that makes sense. I'm so sorry. Do you need anything? Warhead sour candy, dinosaur nugget? Sorry, I don't know why I worked so hard to shoehorn a WWE fan diss into the script. All interests are valid except Marvel movies. The phrase "time flies when you're having fun" is, I think, one of the most interesting and complicated universal observations ever made. It's up there with Dane Cook going, "Don't those loud-ass hand dryers in public restrooms suck? Who can relate?" in 2009. Time flies when you're having fun contains within it some extremely important lessons we can learn, but there are also some aspects of this line that I think are misunderstood. I'm going to do the misunderstood part first because I think it's more fun and novel of an idea, and much of my audience watches me because you watched the video about how our attention spans have been fried, so if that's any indication, I'm going to make sure I give you all the fun part of the video first. Or maybe I should put it at the end and make you earn it. I'm not sure yet. Anyway, I think the better way of phrasing time flies when you're having fun would be time doesn't exist when you're having fun, and time flies when you're zombie brain satiated. But that doesn't quite roll off the tongue as well. When you are truly having fun, when you're with your favorite people and having stimulating conversation, or when you're playing in a sporting event, or when you're truly having fun, you can often look up at the clock and go, God, is it really already 11 o'clock? And in that way, time flies. But also, if you've ever played a sport or performed on stage or been truly in the moment in the way only deeply having fun can place you, you know that time may fly, but also those moments are infinite. That basketball game, when you're out there on the court, it lasts forever. It feels like years. I used to perform live a lot when I rapped in college. I know. And I can relive and recount to the second the facial expressions of specific people in the crowd or the set list in order. I can smell the beer-soaked floor in the Double Branch Bar and Lounge in Troy, Alabama, where I went to school. Being in the moment, doing what you love, it speeds up time and it slows down time. I can't tell you what I said 3 minutes ago, but I can tell you what happened on the third play in an 8th grade basketball game against Spanish Fort Blue when I was 12 years old. Being in the moment, truly having fun, it removes the existence of time altogether because you get to be in the present. And in the present, time necessarily does not exist. The present moment lasts forever. It's always the present. And we only experience the passing of time when we live in the future, worry, or in the past, sadness. And time stops existing when you're having fun because you can enter this creative flow state. And that looks different for everyone. And it can absolutely be a physical thing. It can be when you're working out or when you're playing cards with your friends or even something consumptive like watching TV or reading a book. But especially for people who have found their creative outlet, and I firmly believe that everyone has a creative ability, and those who say they don't just haven't found it yet. Especially for those in their creative outlet, there is a truly inexplicable and magical time warping phenomenon that takes place when you're in that place. And in that flow state, that's the most dramatic example of exactly what I'm talking about when I say time doesn't exist when you're having fun. Like for any of you who make music, when you're recording and arranging music and composing and bringing thoughts and ideas to life, that's the most severe example of the, oh shit, it's 11 o'clock thing. And I'll look up and realize I've sat in front of my computer with a guitar in my lap for 7 hours without peeing or breathing sometimes, I think. But it's also a place, a mental state, a meditative state almost, or sometimes literally, in which I truly forget where I am, what I'm doing, who I am, everything. Like nothing exists outside that moment, and that moment lasts for ages. This flow state phenomenon is not some breakthrough idea that I've had. It's been discussed at length in regards to painters, authors, poets, playwrights, singers, sculptors, architects, builders, fashion designers, woodworkers, improvisers, Dungeons and Dragons players. There are infinite ways to be generative, to be creative. And if you find one that resonates with you and you dive into it, you can and will access the only woo-woo, hippie, universal consciousness type thing that I believe in. And in that flow state, in that perpetual present, time doesn't stop. It goes away. The second thing that I think is misunderstood about time flies when you're having fun, and I promise I'm going to tie all this together in the end. It's going to make sense in a few minutes, I promise. Just stay with me. The second thing I think is misunderstood about this is what fun is in terms of how it relates to this phenomenon of time feeling like it truly flies by unobserved. I think that version of fun is vastly different from the fulfilling infinite fun that exists and allows time to be sort of suspended. The richness of that kind of fun is what allows it to happen. And when time truly flies during fun, it's because you're not having fun in that way. What you're really doing is escaping the passage of time through passive non-participation in reality. On the opposite end of the spectrum from, oh shit, it's 11 o'clock, after you've spent 6 infinite hours pulling your mind out of your brain and creatively putting it into the real world in some way, is, oh shit, it's 11 o'clock, I just laid in bed with my shoes on for 6 hours watching Instagram reels. That's when time flies. Time flies when it's wasted. Time flies when you're able to remove yourself from the observation of its passing by, in this case, watching 215 straight woodworking videos, but are entirely unfulfilled by what you've done to remove yourself from that observation. When we consume video media, especially low-value short-form content on a boundless, infinite timeline, we are completely disengaging. We are exiting reality and moving temporarily into another world. When we watch something or read something or listen to something, the reason it's so entertaining to do these things is because our brains feel the same way they would if these things we're watching or reading were actually happening. We suspend our disbelief willfully, but also subconsciously. Our lizard brains, which evolved to spear buffalo efficiently, are not evolved to distinguish between reality and a magic box in your hand within which exists an entire infinite universe. That's why you can watch a 3-hour movie without wanting to paint your ceiling with your brain, but you can't sit in that same chair and look at the wall for longer than 2 minutes. Our brain doesn't know the difference between realities. And the problem with this is when the mechanism by which we enter these parallel universes we're constantly entering and exiting is not doing anything. When you watch a movie, you're thinking, you're following a plot line, you're making predictions, you're feeling emotions and practicing empathy and experiencing delayed gratification. And all of these things are justifiable and that move and shake you deeply to your core. And that's why we have such deep connections to our favorite movies or books or video games or songs or poems, etc. And this is why these pieces of media affect us so drastically and shape us into who we are. You are what you eat, right? When the mechanism by which you take a break from reality and enter another world is a series of 15-second unrelated stimulus-based videos that are often rage bait or algorithmically platformed because they drive watch time, because they make people scared or sad, and your brain is constantly pulled into and out of shallow, meaningless little windows in which you learn nothing and feel nothing. You feel at surface level and nothing beyond putting your toes in. When you consume content in this way from a distance, you remove yourself from yourself further. And that content's not even registering. It doesn't have time to. I mean, you don't see your phone in your dreams, dude. Like, think about it. I mean, that's been pointed out before, and you might have thought about this already, but the fact that we don't dream about our smartphones is, to me, all but empirical evidence that when we are consuming this short-form, trivial, shallow content on an infinite loop, our brains are just turning off. And they're turning back on hours later, and you don't realize the time you've wasted. And that's when time flies. You enter another universe, but in this other universe, you're not aware that you're there. You're asleep. And so when you wake up, just like in real life, you don't feel like you've been lying still for 8 hours, or in my case, tossing and turning for 4.5 hours. So time stops existing when you're having fun, and it flies when you're being mindlessly satiated. Maybe if I say it enough, it'll stop sounding so clunky. So I'm sure you can see where I'm going with this by now. See, I told you it would all come back together. But how do we stop feeling like this is all happening too fast? How do I grab the minute's hand on the clock like Elastigirl stopping that bullet train? That do something for you? That do something for you, you pervert? How do I slow down? And the answer, of course, is by slowing down. Stop running. Stop moving so frantically from one satiating distraction to the next. Stop panicking about the future and or living in the past, and have some fun, some real fun. So what do we do, actionably speaking, about time moving so fast? We put our phones down and we pick up a paintbrush, whatever your paintbrush is, whether it's a guitar or a knitting needle or a Word document or a soccer ball or an actual paintbrush. If we want time to slow down, our pursuit must be to find a new mechanism by which to step out of our universe and into another one. To find a new mechanism by which to enter that flow state, to have real fun again, and to grab Father Time by his shriveled, narrow shoulders and spit in his face. The only problem, of course, is that Father Time likes that kind of stuff, and that might only get him going in a romantic way. And then you've got a whole host of other issues to deal with. Boom! That's 2 kink jokes in 45 seconds, baby. We do things differently down here on the Shameless Nerd channel. channel. Ultimately, what I'm saying is not even that difficult or groundbreaking. My point is just that if we can shift our focus from mindless, valueless fun to stimulating, valuable fun, some of the time we'll feel far more fulfilled. That's at the core of my argument. I think the ways in which it correlates to time's passage and our relationship with age are valid. I wouldn't have tried to make those connections if I didn't. But even in a vacuum, separate from this context, pursuing fulfilling hobbies is a much more important and fulfilling and satisfying pursuit, but it's also more fun. This isn't a plea to eat your vegetables because it's good for you. This is more like if candy and French fries were good for you. Finding creative outlets that mean something to you and being open to the idea that you are creative, that you are capable, and that looks different for everyone, but it is possible. That's where our sense of self and confidence and our individuality comes from. So eat your French fries. They're good for you. Thanks for watching. See you next time.